Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Hello and welcome back to probably the best show that this channel has to offer, probably the best show that YouTube has to offer. Of course, it is the tactical preview. No bias there at all, but
absolutely.
I'm delighted to be joined by Stu and returning, hopefully soon to be regular guest Callum. Obviously, Abdul's going to be joining us soon. Hope you guys are
dog started
doing
barking,
well. So yeah. Abdul will be with us once he's put his dog in another room. But we'll jump straight into it. Obviously, you know, we spent 2 hours talking about United City. Obviously, Stu, you were only here for the first half of it, but I'll come to you first.
Yes.
You know, there was a way to beat City. We've seen it this year, and we didn't. We went completely the opposite way. We got battered. So, what went wrong? I suppose is the first question.
Well, he played a completely different formation to what I would have played. I said on the show, if you remember, I would have gone 3 at the back and played with 2 wing backs, positioned slightly higher. It's almost like a smiling face, a smiling mouth, and that would have really swallowed almost Cancelo and Walker, as it turned out. We weren't sure who we thought was going to play. We weren't sure if it Walker or it'd be Stones. But we went completely opposite way, didn't he? And he put out a team that a lot of fans, liked. A lot of fans thought it was the right side. And I suppose when you look at the first half, one for the better phrase, we did okay. But City were always going to get on top of us, and there was the standard rhetoric of what went wrong in terms of who was at fault for the first goals, etc. I saw it completely differently, probably to every other fan. You know, as far as I'm concerned, if 2 players can't stop Silva getting the crossing, you know, there's a real problem, because Silva should never have got the crossing. And actually, if you remember that passage of play, at one point he had 3 players around him, and he still managed to get the crossing at some point. There was issues with De Gea's communication. There was issues with McTominay and Fred both lagging behind, not going with the runner, which was De Bruyne at that particular time. Lindelof was woefully out of position for some reason. He was a lot further behind and slightly down on Maguire. And Maguire was looking in the wrong direction. He was looking towards De Gea rather than the actual play. But having said that, and if I was Maguire, there's no way I'd have expected the ball to have come across. Absolutely not. It should never have come across. And so it kind of went downhill from there, really. We made a couple of good chances. We obviously didn't convert them, apart from the Sancho one, although Sancho should have put his second one away, the one he skied into Rose Head. If he'd had some, a little bit more composure. I suppose if we'd gone in at 2-2, it may well have been a different game. But the second half was men against boys. Cal's been really vocal, and he's right. We just gave up. We may as well have just taken our shirts off and sat down in the middle of the pitch, because we just didn't care. And Cal's right. We just didn't care. And that leads us on to Tottenham, which we will talk about in a few minutes. And my worry is that Conte would have smelled blood. He would have understood exactly where Manchester United are now. And I just don't, for all the best will in the world, I just don't see where we can improve right now in terms of squad mentality. I've said before, James, and the lads will back me up, I've said before that the only way you can play yourself into any kind of form is yourself. You're the only one that can affect what you do on a football pitch. You can be coached as much as you like on the training pitch, but if you don't put that into practice, it's your own fault as a player. And my worry is, I know Cal will go into a bit more depth on his viewpoint, because he mentioned it last night, that they just don't have the wherewithal, or they don't have. I'm not sure it's a mentality. I just don't think they can be bothered. But Cal will go through it in a bit anyway. So yeah, sorry, Vix, I'm trying, but that's just football. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a real difficult task.
You're on mute, Cal, but regardless, we'll wait for your rant just a second, because I want to come to Abdul and just dive further into the game itself. Because obviously we spoke in depth about the United's ability to screen City's midfield, not leave gaps open. But you saw in the game there's a lot of City players dropping deep, finding spaces where they probably weren't spaces before. So was it a case of United were that bad, or was it a case of this was a real proper performance by Manchester City?
I think it had a bit of both, because like in the beginning we were better because I don't think City expected us to press the way we did, and basically as the half went on they figured it out, by Bernardo dropping in deep into the spaces where Fernandes and Pogba were leaving it empty, and because they wanted to create the numerical superiority in midfield where Fred and Scott were pushing further ahead. The issue was, I think Ranić went too gung-ho on City when he doesn't have the players that can basically go toe-to-toe with City, And this is where central progression, again, as an issue became evident to us, as in not central progression, that's the wrong word, central penetration in our central of the field. It was easier for them. And then they realized that we have major issues on the right-hand side with positioning, right? So they basically, I think around the 25th minute, they started to really hammer us down that right-hand side,
absolutely.
And then was the combination of Grealish, Bernardo Silva, and Cancelo. And then often, Foden would come in on that right-hand side also and help them out. So what was happening basically is the positioning of Alanga was wrong, the positioning of Scott McTominay was wrong, and the positioning of Aaron Wan-Bissaka was wrong. And they played on that big time, right? At first, we were good in pressing because they didn't realize, I don't think they expected us to press that way. So they were like, oh, wait, this is not what we prepared for, kind of thing. And then they adjusted. But so basically what we were doing is we were denying Rodri the ball, and then Fernandes or Pogba, depending on where the ball is, would try to cut off one of the center backs, so that one of their center backs will have to ping it to a fullback. But once he does that, we had the wide players ready to, press the fullbacks right away, which is Sancho and Alanga. And if they don't play to the fullbacks, they play to the central midfielders. We had Fred and Scott ready to intercept that, and Fred did intercept a lot of balls in the first 20-25 minutes, and it was good. It was working, but City figured it out by dropping Bernardo Silva down into that double pivot, if you will. You know what I mean? And then De Bruyne basically shifting across in the center to just keep one of the central pivots busy. But all in all, the problem is that our right-hand side was very weak. So Alanga wasn't covering his angles very well. And then Scott McTominay with his positioning issues, he's too focused on the ball rather than the runs that are happening behind him. And then Aaron Wan-Bissaka had a really bad game in terms of neither was his 1v1 good or his tracking of the runs that are happening behind him was good. And that forced Lindelof to shift across and try to cover him. So the center backs have to cover the fullback when runs happen behind them. So Lindelof would get out of his position to cover his fullback's lack of awareness of the runs, which also resulted in Lindelof making really bad mistakes. And then Maguire and Telles will be basically left to deal with the havoc that's being caused in the box, which would happen. We'd always be outnumbered with the number of players that City have in our box in comparison to the number of players we have in our box, which is very bad if you think about it. It's your box and there's more attacking players there than actually defending players. So that's how I saw the game happening. And then when Ranić took off Pogba, I think that affected the game very badly, in the sense that we no more are able to transition the way we're able to transition in the first half, and we no longer can even keep the ball as we kept it, at least for 20 minutes in the first half. So putting on Rashford and putting on Lingard really added almost nothing to the game. In fact, it made us worse because it's. I don't want to say, look, like I don't believe in that not interested part of players, but they looked like they're not interested. They looked like it's already done. We're lost. We're not. There's nothing we can do about it. I'm just like I kind of gave up, kind of thing. And they didn't add anything to the game basically. But I think it started with subbing Pogba off. Now the reason for subbing Pogba off, I don't know whether he has an injury, tired, whatever it is. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And after they hit us with that third goal, like United basically weren't in the game. They packed their bags and left, basically.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'd
a
agree with
perfect
that.
way to end it. Yeah, to pack the bags and sort of give up. But listen, I'm excited to hand over to All for United's answer to Roy Keane. Cal, performance-wise, what were your thoughts on Sunday?
So do I actually.
I really like that. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Yeah, I mean, ultimately the first half was okay. I thought we were in the game. It seemed like we were kind of hunting the ball down. They were happy to transition from back to front. They wanted to get forward quickly. They gave City a go in the first half. Ultimately, the second half, and especially the last 25, 30 minutes, is the downfall of that game. The best way I could suggest is I genuinely do believe they gave up. They quit on us. You don't. I get in football, you lose football games. I haven't got issues with that. I get sometimes you just don't play well. I haven't got issues with that. It's part and parcel of football. Sometimes you're just not on your game that week. It happens. But in the final 20 minutes, Man United touched the ball 44 times. City touched it 217 times. In that final 20 minutes, United made 17 passes. City made over 250.
Rodri had more passes than the entire United team in the last 30 minutes. Rodri only had 17 passes, and entire United team had 16 passes. So
it's I know I've said it before, and I genuinely believe it's. I don't know whether it's a mentality issue. I do genuinely think some of these players just are here because it's Man United, and they kind of, from the very top of the club, it's kind of a bit of a shambles. And I think that they've sort of they've lacked care and quality and being bothered. I mean, people keep going, you quit in a Manchester derby. I couldn't care less if it was a Manchester derby. You could have been playing Burnley on Sunday. If you can't be bothered running for the ball, or if you can't be asked making 2 or 3 passes, or if you let the ball dummy back through your legs in your own 6-yard box, that just shows either you don't care or you are such a weak-minded footballer that you think that's the right thing to do. And I can't get my head around it. I genuinely believe there's with a lot of these players, there's a very weak mentality to them. And I think that comes from a few things. I think that comes from they look at the very top of the club and see how they're not bothered, so why should we? I think it comes from having no leadership in the dressing room. I hate to be that person, but when you look back 20 years and you saw the likes of Jaap Stam and Roy Keane and Dennis Irwin and Brian Robson and Steve Bruce and all these players in the dressing room, you die for them players. Whereas now, I feel like there's a huge lack of sort of picking it up by the scruff of the neck and getting the result that you want. It's really frustrating. I mean, I've obviously calmed down a lot the past few days, but I just remember watching that game on Sunday, kind of in disbelief. Usually I'm in a pub or I'm at Old Trafford and I'm kind of screaming at the top of my lungs, either pissing off everybody in the pub or annoying everyone around me in Old Trafford. Whereas on Sunday I just watched it at home and I was kind of just quiet and sad and just not bothered. I just couldn't believe what I was watching. I couldn't believe I was watching Man United professional footballers who gave up. You don't lose a game of football when you lose 2-1. You lose a game of football when you quit. You're defeated when you quit. You're not defeated when you lose. And I think that was the most upsetting thing that we were watching. And this is the thing, we play Liverpool in a month or so. And I genuinely believe with the way Liverpool play, I think they're a lot more ruthless in their attack than City.
It's got to be rescheduled, that as Carl.
No, yeah, but I imagine it'll be in a month
yeah,
or so. It'll be around the end of April.
Yeah.
I reckon Benny's right what he said. What they'll bill it as if United lose, Liverpool win the league, and it'll be all United's fault. And Sky Sports will bill it as that and try and blame United for them winning the league because they know how much it'll annoy United fans. Ultimately, I think Liverpool are a lot more ruthless in attack, and I think it's the same again. I think City could have won 5, 6, 7-1 again, really, in that last 20 minutes, and they slowed it down. They refused to come out second or third gear. You know, why they don't? It's and that's the worst thing about it. I get the impression City felt sorry for us. Our local rivals felt sorry for us. I got slated for saying it, but I genuinely believe that these players either are weak-minded and haven't got what it takes mentally to play for United, which if that's the case, fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but they simply need to be moved on. Or they don't care. They simply do not care. And that's what upsets me the most, because I think all four of us on here as United fans cared about the club probably a little bit too much. And I think that's the thing that hurts the most, knowing that the players don't.
Can I butt in a little bit here?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I had a conversation with one of my friends actually, who was also a United fan, about what exactly happened to this team. Like, because I think the defining factor of this team last season was that they never gave up. You know, like they always came back. They always find a way to win. Like even if they're not gonna win, they didn't even lose easy. Like the Sheffield United game was a one-off, and the Leicester Liverpool was 2 days in between in a four game in 7 days week. So I was like, even the start of this season, the chemistry of this team, the willingness of this team was very good. You know, like even I don't know if you guys remember, but you remember the scenes after the West Ham game when David De Gea saved that penalty, right? Remember how all of them like just hugged each other and hugged De Gea, and they were so happy about winning that game because it put us at the top of the table. We remained at the top of the table after West Ham. And Ollie was there and they put him in the huddle as well. I was like, so what broke them? Like there must have been something that broke this team because they were not weak before this. They just, you don't become automatically a weak person just in a matter of 2 months, or 3 months. And
I agree with that.
I don't want to be that guy again, but like it all goes back to him, to the guy that came in after that game. I think the players play it down a lot, but there are major issues and major fallouts between players in that dressing room, and they're not together anymore. And ever since
you can see it on the pitch, though, can't you? Yeah, I think you can see it straight on the pitch. Like they're just not.
I think there's a more
critical
group, are they? Yeah, I think there's a more critical issue, and it's been. Sorry, Abdul, it's been with us for a while. We're not fucking aggressive. We don't play aggressive football. We don't play aggressive tactics. Look,
but even then, Stu, you don't give up. You don't see that game. You don't see that game that we saw on Sunday. Like
no, that's right. But what I'm saying is, you're on that pitch, and you've got that fucking poser Cancelo, the other poser Rodri in there. You've got fucking Carl Walker. You've got Gundogan just strolling around. Look, you've got to sometimes, I say this a lot, don't I? You go rogue. You've got to sometimes take one for the team. It's such an old school approach to football. But fuck me, if that was happening to me, I'd have absolutely battered one of them.
But that's exactly the point I'm saying, is that there are actually major fallouts between these players, and that's why they're not taking one for the team, because they don't like the team anymore. They don't like the people that they're playing with.
Don't disagree. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, I don't know whether it's like the Portuguese group are on their side and they're all siding with Ronaldo, and other people are not siding with Maguire, and then Rashford and Jesse Lingard and those guys are not even asked anymore about the fights that are going on. But I'm 100% sure of it now, that there is something really massive is going down that dressing room. And obviously they have to play it down in front of the media and in front of everybody. And whenever, a story comes out about them fighting, they'll go and, no, there's nothing wrong between me and this person. There's nothing wrong between me and that person, just to save face. But there is no way that team went from what they were last season to this complete collapse just like that.
I think that's what makes it so much worse, though, isn't it? Because when you did see the team last season, they did fight for each other, and they never gave up. You could see it, and I think that's what makes it worse.
The Aston Villa
we
game,
know they can do it, and now they're not. And why aren't they doing it now? Like, what has happened and gone so wrong for them to do this?
I kept reliving all these moments that we had, like the way, remember that last ditch tackle by Bailly that, when we won that Aston Villa game and everyone jumped on him and was tagging him. Same thing with David De Gea, same thing with Pogba when he scored that wonder goal against Fulham, when made it 2-1 and we went top of the league. It's like, there is no way these guys just suddenly hated each other. Like there has to be something that got injected into that dressing room that made it fall that way. And I swear to God, I have no agenda against him, but it just all stems back to him. It just all goes back to him.
Well, who are you on about?
Cristiano Ronaldo, man.
The main man.
It all goes back to him. Ever since he came into that dressing room, something happened. He took some players aside and said, I don't like the rest or something. I have no idea what he did, but that dressing room got really sour after his first 2 games. And that's, I'm telling you, that is the reason why. And I like, if after this show right now, tomorrow, they all started playing together and he was the reason he got them back together, I'll be the happiest person. I don't care. But up until now, it's only getting worse and worse between them. And we have like about, 14 players that are on contracts right now. And it looks like we don't want most of them anymore. From a lovable team that we were all fighting and making excuses for and wanted them to push forward to winning the league, to a team, that entire team, we don't want the entire team anymore. Like, people are like literally, and I'm one of them, saying half the team should go, because it got that sour. So it's sad. It's sad, but like, I just can't find any other logical reason for why it got that bad. Obviously, coupled with the results, coupled with how we didn't get a midfielder and made the pressure even harder. And, they have to now run extra because there's a man that doesn't run in the team. Maybe it's a man that they don't even like anymore. So that extra work with the bad results, with this guy's presence in the dressing room, all that probably made it explode. Like everything just together made the whole dressing room explode.
Well, listen, it's damning, but we've got to try and focus on positives at the minute with all the negativity. And the positive is we're playing Spurs, who are a good team, but a beatable team, no doubt about that. So, we will stick with the positives to start. Obviously, there's areas that we need to work on if we're going to beat Spurs. But Stu, what do we do differently from City to get a result? Because obviously, I get Spurs beat City, but it's a completely different kettle of fish that you're playing in the two teams.
Well, we got to control the play, and it's very easily said than done. And it really is an easy statement. But you have to control the play. I've said on this show many a time, we need a player on there within our squad. There will be somebody who can get hold of the ball. Now, that could even be ridiculous. This is about to sound is Juan Mata. Juan Mata has an ability to hold the play when we desperately need it. He can slow the play down when we desperately need it. He can pick the decisive pass when we desperately need it. He can disrupt play when we desperately need it. But it's where you fit Juan in, because he's never going to play over Pogba. He's never going to play over Fernandes. So it's exactly what you do and where you fit him. We can't play him a central midfielder because he's not a central midfielder. He's a floating player. He's absolutely dynamic at it. Now, if you remember under Ollie and sometimes with Mourinho, he would play him out on the right. Not as a winger, but just as a wide midfielder. But for me, you've got to perhaps start looking at the depth of squad that we've got and start looking at where we can really use the players, because there is occasions, and I've played in various teams where the same old players are turning out. That includes myself, and I might have been going through a bad run of form, and I know that, but I've never been dropped, and that's not always the right thing to do. Sometimes the right thing to do is to take players out of the equation. Now, we started to do that with Rashford at the moment. I don't really see Alanga as a starter for us. I would start radically look to rechange. Look, Conte is going to come with 3 at the back, isn't he? We all know this. We all know how Conte is going to play. We don't need to talk about Spurs and the way they're going to set up. And we know that Harry Kane on his day is lethal. Son running in, and they've got this new Russian or this new Polish guy, haven't they, on the right side? I can't quite pronounce his name, but he looks very, very good. He's very comfortable on the ball. He can cut inside.
Football Manager.
Is it? Oh yeah. Well, I'd blame the manager on Football Manager, quite frankly. But they'll play Kane, and then they'll play Son and Kulusevski, whatever his name is, behind him. So we're going to have a real problem. So we're going to have a problem in fullback area, and we're going to have a problem in the midfield. He can't, in my opinion, play Pogba and Fernandes again. Now, me and Abdel agree on this in certain matches. Abdel actually disagreed with me on the City game, didn't you? You wanted Pogba in. If I remember.
Yeah, but I didn't want him to spearhead the press.
Not to spearhead the press, but you wanted him in. But on this, but there's occasions where we do agree, and I just feel on this one we're going to need. I don't think we're going to need Fred and McTominay. I really don't. We're going to need one holding player, but we need creativity in and around. And I just think this game, and I know I'll get told I don't know what I'm talking about, is suited for Mata. I think the way. Because they're not particularly quick at the back. Dyer's not exactly the best at the back. I don't think Lloris is having his best moments in terms of his overall career at the minute. I just feel that Mata could be a missing key for us right now. The other thing is they won't be expecting it. Then you've got to look at our back 4 again, which is just a debate that I'm fucking fed up of having. What do you do? Do you bring Varane back in? And who do you sacrifice? We know he won't sacrifice Maguire, so he sacrifices Lindelof. Do you trust then Aaron Wan-Bissaka? Do you trust Luke Shaw? Do you prefer Dalot? And do you prefer... So actually on this occasion, I prefer Dalot for his penetration up and down the right. We know he can't defend. We know this, but Wan-Bissaka's in this particular period of his career where he can't probably tie his own bootlaces. He's probably getting some kid in the change room to tie it because he'd get that wrong. He's got real problems at the moment as Wan-Bissaka. So I think Dalot coming in would be ideal. I also think that Telles coming in would be a better option than Shaw. I don't know if Shaw's going to be injured, but Telles and Abdel was absolutely right. He was caught out of position on 4 or 5 occasions. Even for the first goal, he didn't recognise what was happening in front of him, which is criminal for a fullback not to be tucked in. Absolutely criminal. But again, going forward, he offers us a lot. So when you look at the inclusion of Mata, you look at the inclusion of Fernandes, you look at the inclusion of Telles, you've got 3 quality ball players who can use the ball properly. And that sometimes gets forgotten. And then it's what you do up top. I mean, look, I'll let the lads discuss what you do up top because that's just an open book for us. It really is. Nothing's working up front for us at the minute. Nothing.
Yeah. So, can I address a quick comment though on one of the people that commented?
Yeah, I'll finish now, Abdel. I'll let you guys speak about
I'm just gonna comment on that comment that he made. Akil, I think he said his name. He said that the players lost motivation because it's been 3 years and they haven't won anything with Oli. I don't think so. Because if you watch the post Europa League final interview of Rashford and how he talked about the dressing room that they're determined to come back and win, just go watch that interview again, and then watch how the first few matches of United were and how they actually fought for each other. They did not lose motivation. That's not the case. It's the motivation or whatever that was between them was broken apart when after that Aston Villa game, around that time, you'll start to see the cracks starting to happen and people screaming at each other and problems start to happen. And then it got progressively worse after that. Before that, they were harmonious. They were together. Look at Rashford's post-final Europa League final interview. The guy was determined to come back and win something. He's like, the manager won't leave us. The manager will stay on our head until we win something. We're all together in this. We're very close. You know, you can see that. You can see the group and how they're fighting for each other. That was what Rashford's words after the Europa League final, after the defeat. So they did not lose motivation. Yeah, they did not lose motivation after 3 years of Oli. No. It's not that. They can see the progress. They're not stupid people. They can see that they were very close in everything. And actually, what's damning, what made them lost motivation is that everything got broken after that point that we were discussing. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say on that comment.
So
no, it's cool. So I left it with the front pairings. Whatever you guys think, I'd be interested to see what you think.
The best thing I can really say about Spurs is by sort of addressing their most recent game, because it's kind of what you have to do, especially with your next opponents. With them being Everton and being such a poor side at the moment, I think it kind of showed the ruthlessness of Conte. I know. So with Conte, I think I wanted to address what Stu said before. Effectively, this isn't Conte's team. He's added a couple of very, very good players. But I think if you were to give the guy time, I think Tottenham could genuinely come on to become a force. I think he's got a very aggressive nature about him, and I think if he was to be allowed the time and the resources, which I'm not sure if Tottenham have, but if he was to be given those resources, Chelsea 1-0 by the way, then Tottenham could be a genuinely fierce team. Now, addressing the Everton game, we've said a lot on these preview shows that Man United leave huge gaps between defence, midfield, and the forward line, and a big problem that we have is it's a constant. So Alan on Monday when the Everton played Tottenham was tasked with effectively being the ball-winning midfielder, whilst Decore and Donny were trying to press the ball, leaving too much space. And the attacking three of Tottenham, which is, as we all know, very, very good, it allowed them so much space between the defence and the midfield to attack them. And we all know what happened. It ended up being 5-0. So if we do that, I can see Tottenham really punishing us. The thing that we can kind of differ from that, though, is I think, especially when it was Solskjaer, but I think Rangnick will do it too. I can see him starting with two, not ball-winning midfielders per se, but the closest that we have to that. And I think he'll probably start Fred and McTominay for that reason. I think because United will try and chase the ball back down to not allow their front three to have that space in the half spaces just in front of the defence to try and exploit in behind. I think if we were to have both Fred and McTominay there, I think it would be our best opportunity to hinder Son Kulusevski, I think he's called, and Kane. We all know how good Kane and Son are. It looks like this Kulusevski is a very good signing. Could be, I believe they've got him on 2 years on loan and then a mandatory future fee, which is brilliant business for Spurs. A right winger that, again, Man United probably could have done with. But the thing is, if we were to overload the midfield and especially have Fred and McTominay there, I think to have two players doing that role against this Spurs team could really work well for us, because we can't allow what Everton did to allow too much space in between the midfield and the defence to allow the front three to exploit it. And we can't have too much of a high line because we know that Son and Dejan all completely exploit that and get in behind the defence and run at the goalkeeper and try and work the ball into the back of the net, because we know that's what Spurs will want to do. So I think if we were to start with those two as close to holding midfielders as we would have, I think we'd have a better shot at winning the game. Ultimately, the players need to bounce back, because I think that they've upset a lot of people on Sunday, of course. And should we do that? Because, like I say, Conte hasn't got the team he wants, and we've seen over the past few weeks they beat City and they lose to Burnley. they beat Leeds and they go out of the FA Cup to Middlesbrough. So it depends what kind of Spurs team turns up, because I also believe this Spurs team, some of them anyway, are weak mentally. They just haven't got that winning mentality, and I think that might be a problem with some United players as well. So if we were to pick the right team, I genuinely think Freddie McTominay could do a job against Spurs. I think it'd be the right choice in midfield, but we can't allow that front three to exploit the space in behind the defence, and we can't allow the midfield and the defence and the forwards as well, I suppose, to an extent. We can't allow huge gaps in those three lines, because it will be exploited by that front three of Spurs.
Well, Abdul, I want to come to you on this, on a separate point. Sorry, I want to talk about the pressing, because I think City was the perfect summarisation of what we've seen so far under Ranić, where first 25 minutes or so, the pressing intensity is really high. We're creating chances off the back of this pressing, and then it just seems to sort of fade away as such. I don't know whether it's players getting tired or a tactic to retreat or what, but what do you make of the pressing? Because obviously it's effective in these short bursts, but is it almost a hindrance that we seem to knock ourselves out in the first 25 minutes?
I think it's the problem with our pressing at the moment is that we do it continuously for like 20. It's not even short bursts. It's even like that. We do it continuously for like 30 minutes, and then they use up all their stamina basically, and then the second half they like just don't have the energy anymore to do that same amount of effort. And with pressing, you have to be very smart. Like, I think that's even a lesson that Jurgen Klopp learned at Liverpool, right? Like, he was buying all these pressing players. So they're originally players that can press. Not all of our players can press, by the way. But like at a certain point, they began to burn out and began to have a lot of injuries. And because he is insistent on having this like 70 to 80 minutes of pressing, you know? And by that time, they've already won the game. With us, though, we haven't been accustomed to that level of intensity that Ralph really wants, where like you're really aggressive, you're really on each player that you're pressing, and coupled with they don't really know how to press at the right time. You know, like there are certain triggers that happen, and then you see us, you know, press the right way, or you see us shift the opposition into the right directions. But someone like Bruno Fernandes, for example, because of the forwards that he has in front of him, he presses in almost like just like with his hero ball, he has a hero mode in pressing as well, you know, where he goes and presses on his own. And that is a problem because he breaks our shape completely. And once he does that, it's very easy for the opposition to just play through, right? So that's an issue with Fernandes, but that issue is stemming from that his forwards are pressing at the wrong time, or they're not pressing at all, even though they are the leaders of the press. Like your forward line is basically the ones that trigger your press. Like if you were watching yesterday's game, PSG and Real Madrid, Karim Benzema was leading the press. You know, he is the trigger. Once Benzema presses the goalkeeper or one of the center backs, the entire team shifts to his direction. With us, no, we don't, because the front three don't really know how to press, especially when it was like a Ronaldo, Rashford kind of combination. You know, both of them don't know how to press, let alone if they press to begin with. So Fernandes kind of falls into this mode. Well, I'll take it upon myself and I'll do the work on by myself if they don't do it right. You know what I mean? And basically this puts us in a very weak position because he presses on his own and he opens the midfield for the opposition. So when you do that, and then that you see that the work is not actually like fruitful, I guess that's the word, you know, like when like you're not getting anything out of it. Well, you can say you get motivated, you lose energy faster than, you know how sometimes when it's not working, you feel like you don't have the energy, even though you actually do have it, but it's just that you got, you know, demotivated because whatever is happening, whatever you're trying to do is not working. I think that's what they fall into, that trap, and take into consideration the entire season and what's been happening with them. I think that's why they revert to not type, but they revert to the like, well, it's not working anyway. Why bother kind of thing, which is a very bad thing to fall into. But it's I think that's what happens with them in the second half, where like we did all this work in the first half and it didn't work, and we're still 0-0. You know, so I'm to hell with pressing kind of thing. You know what I mean? But also, even when they go up 1-0, because of our midfield issues and the gaps that Callum was talking about, and we get, for example, we concede a goal, it's like it kind of goes like, oh, here we go again mode. You know what I mean? Like we conceded another goal again. It's so easy. But the thing is, it stems from the combination of players that you have up front and your lack of DM, basically. I don't know if that answered the questions fully or not, but I hope it did.
I think the main thing to sort of say between all three of us here is, you know, look, the City game was awful. I think it was probably one of the worst things of the season. The main thing that I think we're looking for is a lot more desire from the players, a bit more motivation in them. We want to see a leader sort of step up. I want to just see a bit of effort. We want to see that Tottenham have some strength. We want to be able to exploit their weaknesses and use our strengths, because we know we do have some. We just want the players to go into a game with the right mentality for a change. We want a bit of effort, a bit of desire, a bit of care for the shirt, and just you know, have some common sense. You're a professional footballer.
Yeah.
Sunday wasn't good enough, and I think the main thing we need to see is we just need to see something different from Sunday. We need to see and be shown that these players care about us and the club, because we are really losing interest in these players.
The thing is, Callum, I feel like this team is between a rock and a hard stone. Is that the saying? You know, like
a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, a rock and a hard place. Sorry. See, a rock and a hard place where in you might be trying, but the gaps in your team is always putting you at a disadvantage where you concede easy. You know, and like the way we concede, I don't attribute it to lack of motivation or lack of energy, but the way we try to fight back is this. I can agree with you that they lack motivation, they're not interested in all that stuff. But the way we concede is very evident in the gaps that we have in the team. You know, so for example, this game coming up against Tottenham. Tottenham used Kane as that false nine, the guy to link up between the fast forwards that they have, right? And they used the gaps that City had whenever they pushed forward to press them, right? So they were fine. They knew City were going to have the ball, but they were fine with it. But they had a really crown jewel, which is Kane. Kane is 2-footed, and his passing range is very good, like not Pogba's level, but very close. You know, if Kane turns up that way in a game against us, and we have that gap in midfield, we're gonna get ripped apart whether these players are trying or not. It's because of that issue we have in the middle of the park where we don't have a guy who's good enough. You know, we don't have a guy who scans. We don't have a guy who's aware of the runs that happen behind him or in front. Like, there's a reason Scott McTominay plays a third center back for Scotland, you know? And they put him there because everything is in front of him. They know he doesn't have awareness, but they want his physicality.
The best thing. Sorry, Abdul. The best player I think that I could probably. You mentioned scanning and getting forward. I think the best player I've probably seen at doing that is probably Kimmich at Munich.
No,
like the guy. I watched him the other day, and his head is constantly moving to see what's posted.
Modric
is I'm convinced he is not 36. These are the players that United are missing that we're allegedly going to get and very close to getting.
Verratti, oh my God!
These players should be at United, not at Madrid or PSG. Good God, Verratti would be incredible for Manchester United.
Oh, Verratti!
I'm 100% convinced that if it weren't Verratti, PSG won't be the top of the league.
No, it wouldn't be.
because he's holding it together because the front three are not working at all.
Did you watch
defensively.
Brozovic? Did you watch Brozovic against Liverpool?
Yeah.
Oh,
He would-
unbelievable.
When I
was
see
doing-
these guys, and then you go back on a Saturday and watch United, I'm like, we don't even know what we're missing.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
it's like the whole team will change like that day and night if we get actually a midfielder who can progress the ball and scans his
Actually,
area right.
the better player was Vidal. What's he now? 30. What is he?
34,
I
5,
think,
something like that.
yeah, there is an argument. I mean, obviously, you
Tremendous.
look at Modric and Vidal and things, and these players are 30 plus, 35 plus, some of them, and it just shows the quality of a good midfielder and what it can do. You don't have to be constantly running. I kind of think one of the best at it was Paul Scholes. He was amazing at it. It was why he was so lauded by his peers. And look, I think the main thing that we really do need to finish on is we just need to see something different on Saturday. I just want to see them really try. I really want them to show us that they do care, and I want them to show us that they do have some tactical knowledge about them, because Rangnick is one of the best at it. And I think if they can really listen to him and take on board what he says, I would have no qualms that we would beat Spurs. I really do, because I don't think Spurs have got the quality yet to deal with what Rangnick could make our team do. I think because we've seen it in bits already. I think the lack of clinical finishing that we've had from the likes of Ronaldo and Fernandes and Rashford, and probably Sancho to an extent, but not as much. I think if that was to be executed properly, we would see Rangnick's vision definitely beat Spurs. And I do believe some of these players, maybe not all, but some of these players will want to bounce back after that on Sunday. So let's just hope that they can get what we want.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
For me, is the key man someone has to deal with Kane, because I'm pretty sure Spurs will be fine giving us the ball because they know we won't do anything with it. So if
Big
they
Harry
do that,
Big Harry. He's got to
yeah.
step up.
He has to have a good game and stop Kane, because I mean you can ask McTominay to stay on Harry Kane because he's going to drop in midfield, but I think Kane is way too smart for Scott.
He is way too smart.
I think Fred would be probably best executed on Kane, to be honest, because I know Fred's such a workhorse that I don't think he'd give Kane the breathing room to operate. I think Fred would probably be the best for us to put on him, or we bring Ander Herrera back from PSG and try him out.
In the game we played against them last season, Harry Maguire was stuck to him. So whenever he drops into midfield to tries to collect the ball and progress their play, Harry was always on his back.
Yeah,
I just need him to do that again. That's all I need him to do, is be on his back. And I guess back. I mean, it's easy to compare now, but like back in at that time, there was good communication between the back line. So whenever Harry stepped into midfield, they would cover him well, right? So the entire back line would tuck in well and cover the space that he leaves. And that gave Harry the confidence to stick to Kane and go up until the midfield, or even to the final third if Kane went that far. So I don't know how the confidence levels in that back line anymore right now, but like they need to do that. If they want to win that game, they can't give Kane the space to pick out the runners like Son and the new player that they have. What's his name? Saviski, something like that. Kulusevski.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, looks good.
Yeah.
Good.
So these guys, I'm 100% certain that this will be their game plan. Finding runners that are running off of Kane, and Kane just picking them out with passes whenever they break on us. So someone has to stop Kane more than the runs of these two guys. So
Kulusevski. There you go.
Good player.
We do our research on this channel.
One thing you've learned on this show is how to pronounce Swedish names. There you go. We can't say we don't teach you anything. But I do unfortunately have to bring it to an end there. I'm engaged from about 8 o'clock onwards, so I've got to get off. But massively appreciate you three joining me as ever. Massively appreciate everyone who tuned in as well. Left lots of comments, which helped our conversation. Always appreciated. Very, very much so.
James, before you go, can I just say thanks to a viewer, Jim James, your kind words on Twitter mean a lot, mate. So I really appreciate that.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
Thanks,
go. Personal
everyone.
shout out from Callum Stone. It's all worth it in the end. But listen, we do have to rush off. So as always, a lot of coverage around the game this weekend. So stay tuned to All for United. Like and subscribe so you don't miss any of it. Post-match reaction should be a good one again, depending on the results. So definitely stay tuned for that. But until then, we'll see you next time.